The following program is rated TVMA. This program may contain strong opinions, explicit language, and possible adult themes. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the Smoke Free Radio Network or its affiliates. This program is meant for mature adult audience. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
That was interesting.
Evening, everybody. Mike Peterson back for another week of Vaping and the Mic. I appreciate you taking time to join us. Got a very, very serious special guest. As long as the thunderstorm doesn't knock power out, then we're going to be perfectly fine. But we're going to have a special guest on here in just a minute. And I have been looking forward to this for so long, it's not even funny. I've been like a little kid today, making note cards to make sure that I get all my questions right. It's been a lot of fun gearing up for this particular show. There's one thing that I want to talk about just momentarily, because it is something that it came across in my news feed from Mr. Bill Tarling earlier today. The EU, the European Union, they were going to pass what was known as a copyright directive, and it was going to go through, and there were two things that happened. In that, there was what they call Article 11 and Article 13. Now, Article 11 of this whole thing was, it said that there was going to be a link tax that would force online platforms like Facebook and Google to pay news organizations. Before they actually linked, or when they did link to their stories, they would have to pay for them. Yeah, okay. The second one, Article 13, and it says it proposed an upload filter that would have required all content be uploaded online to be checked for copyright infringement. Okay. Now, beside the fact that that would be so strategically impossible, it's not funny from a hardware standpoint. Here's the thing of what happened. You're going to get at this. Campaigners, and I'm going to read this just directly. Campaigners denounced these provisions as unworkable, and a petition, not just a comment section, but a petition, okay? Turn around, and it said, a petition for Save Your Internet, led by a person, Julia Rita, check this out, of the European Pirate Party. The European Pirate Party. And it attracted more than 700,000 signatures. Not just comments. It attracted 700,000 signatures, the actual count. And they had a damn press conference for this. They got out there with their big billboard sign that looked like, here, Ed McMahon's presenting you a check. And they had people surrounding this thing, 736,000 signatures. Now, this is amazing to me, because these people are engaged in illegal online activity if they're uploading or piracy or anything like that, and yet they got 700,000 people to sign this thing. Meanwhile, here we are in vaping land. The FDA puts it up. We just have a little over 500,000 comments right now. So you can kind of see where that grabbed me. I'm like, you have got to be kidding. People in Europe, the pirates that do piracy, turn around and they have 700,000 signatures. People actually dropped what they were doing and signed this thing, or sent their signature or replica or however they were going to do it. 700,000. I'm like, you have got to be kidding. And we're begging and poking and pleading and prodding and browbeating to get 500,000 comments on the FDA is something that might actually shut the entire industry down. So that's my rant for today. I'm just going to hop right into getting in and talking with our guest tonight. This guy is something else. I had the opportunity to meet him in February down at James Jarvis has a shop, vapor station. He's got several down in the Columbus area. And this gentleman, David Goerlitz, the former Winston man, I got to meet him in February. And through a course of dialogue and being able to chat with him online, it's just one hell of a nice guy. Very, very opinionated, to say the least. But what we're going to do is give him a quick call. I'm going to get him on the phone, and we're going to spend some time talking with this guy who just has a wealth of information. So if you give me just a moment, I know that you're going to hear a little bit of dead space, but I'm going to give him a quick call. One of these days, I'll actually, just like Demetrius has found out, he knows how to connect with everybody, and he knows how to get it all done. Let's see if this is actually going to be the right phone number for me to give him a quick call. Now you watch, I probably dialed somebody by mistake.
Hello?
David.
Hello?
David? Mike Peterson, Vaping in the Mic.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. David Goerlitz, the former Winston man.
How are you tonight? Good to have you on your show. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly fine. I'll check with Bill Charling here real quick. Bill, you're in the chat room there. If you can you let me know that you can hear David okay? I can hear you perfectly fine. While I'm waiting for Bill to come back, I've got this whole pile of questions that I want to talk to you about. It's really rather ironic.
Well, you know what? I talk a lot, so if you have a whole lot to ask me, I have a whole lot of answers for you.
Fantastic.
I would love to make sure that we don't have a technical issue. Is there something I could be on my computer instead of my phone, or is that not doable with you tonight?
It would not. It would probably take me more time than I could even imagine to try to set that up. I wish that I could, but I have not progressed that far in my understanding of how to do that. Dimitri connects everybody. I haven't learned how to.
I just wanted to make sure that you could hear me okay, because I've had technical problems in the past, because I live in the country. So as long as you can hear me, I'm fine.
Lloyd Crawford,
there?
There's another gentleman. Lloyd Crawford says he can hear you loud and clear. Brenda Lynn in the chat room says they can hear you. So we've got you covered. Absolutely have you covered.
Good.
I'm going to start out with just some seriously random questions. And what I was telling people and trying to explain to them was, here I am. I just met you at the very beginning in February this year. And it was down at the shop of James Jarvis down here in Columbus, Ohio.
Right.
And we were able to spend a couple of hours conversing and chatting with, in between, there was you, James, Fig Ramsey was there, and if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Crowley was there, correct?
He was, yep.
Yeah.
Kevin, yourself, myself, James Jarvis, and we were at a couple of his stores down there, and we were going to Cincy Vapors and a couple other places. So, yeah, it was good seeing y'all.
It was awesome. It was one of the best trips that I had made, because when James told me that you were going to be in town, I'm like, I'm definitely going to be there. There's no doubt about it.
Well, good.
So let me ask you, when we talk about you being the former Winston man, I mean, I've got just a ton of questions. And here again, I made these little note cards. My wife came back and she looked at me. She goes, "You look like a little kid." I said, "I'm a fanboy. I can't help it."
Hey, I have Post-it notes all over my office. I have piles of papers, and I usually never get to them because I have a tendency to just speak my mind, and I always get off track. So you're going to have to help keep me online, okay?
Well, let me ask, what years were you the representative, the Winston man, doing advertisements and whatnot?
Well, I was hired in 1981. I beat out 900 other guys for the coveted role.
Wow.
Of the Winston. And I don't know why. I guess maybe I just had a look that they were interested in. And I was able to go in and convince them that I could probably be the best Winston man they ever had. And I proved myself right because I was with them for almost 8.5 years. Paid lots of money to entice, encourage, lure, trick, target, market little kids to become smokers. And for that, I will forever be unhappy with myself for doing that. Being the Winston man was kind of like the Marlboro man, except they're dead. They can't be here today. They've died of lung cancer. I happen to be alive and basically well. I do have COPD and emphysema from my diagnosis 2 years ago from being a 3-pack-a-day smoker.
Oh, wow.
But what's fun about what I did, Mike, was that I got paid $100,000 a year, 26 days work, and all I had to do was find replacement smokers. And 93% of smokers start under the age of 17. So that puts the nail in my coffin for being a schmuck.
Well, everybody's got a past and everybody does a job and everybody picks things up, and it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be upset with ourselves. Past is past. We've all got one.
Well, yeah, but and I've learned to live with it. To be honest with you,
I think
I've paid my dues back. I spent a lot of years trying to get kids to never start. Having worked for the anti-tobacco side, which gives you another 2-hour show that we could do. But paying me a lot of money to be mountain climbing and helicopter piloting and all the things that boys up wanting to be, like the G.I. Joe action figure. It's pretty telling as to how much marketing strategy goes into a $14 billion advertising campaign to associate smoking with healthy activity.
Now, when you're talking about that kind of money, they basically knew exactly what they were doing in their ad campaigns. Would that be true?
Oh, God, yeah. They studied it. They would try 3 or 4 different campaigns. They would have me on motorcycles. They would have me on motocross racing. They would have us as corporate pilots. They were trying to find what was going to be unique about Winston to compete with the Marlboro team, which was always the cowboy, rugged, macho, tough.
Now,
so they decided on the campaign of storm search and rescue, rappelling, mountain climbing, and I'm only talking slow now because I'm getting a terrible reverb, in my conversation with you. So if I sound like I'm slurring my words, I just can't hear myself. Okay, just so you know that.
No, we can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, well, I'm going to just ignore the fact that I'm hearing the reverb, so I'll just continue to talk.
I appreciate that.
I was paid all this money, and to be honest with you, they didn't use me for the first 3 or 4 days up in Mount Evans, Colorado. I thought that they hired me and they weren't going to use me because the other guys were working more than I was, and we were taking 30,000 pictures over every 2 days, and it would wind up taking probably 50 to 60 shots, sending them to R.J. Reynolds for their approval. Had so many different test shots that they finally decided that they were going to lock it to the search and rescue, mountain climbing, rappelling, and things like that. So I did the job very well. I became their lead model after the 4th day, and I stayed with them subsequently for almost 8.5, 9 years, and paying me $100,000 a year for 26 days a year work. Not bad money.
Wow.
But unfortunately, Michael, the problem is the product we were selling was killing 400,000 people plus a year. And I just didn't get it then. I was only 30 years old. I'm 68 now. I'll be 69 on my next birthday. So I got a lot of recompense. I got a lot of paybacks. I got a lot of apologies, and I've made them the last 25 years. And unfortunately, it's falling on deaf ears in a lot of cases because we still have teenagers smoking. We still have marketing by Big Tobacco and Altria and Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds, Imperial Tobacco. And that's why I think I'm of interest to a lot of people like Demetrius. I started with Demetrius a long time ago. I was probably on his very first show. And he knows what I'm all about. He knows that I'm about activism. He knows that I'm trying to pay it forward a little bit for some of the damage that I may have done to people. But like you said, there's a job to me. And I don't know how many people would turn down $100,000 a year for 26 days work, Mike.
No.
I mean, is that something that would find it difficult to do, especially when you're selling a legal product?
And that's the whole thing. And somebody, and Bill Charling just mentioned, that's $100,000 back then. That would be astronomical
I mean, it'd be
cash.
$500,000 now.
Yeah, that's like astronomical kinds of money.
So the thing that I wanted to say to you tonight was because I respect people who have watched the growth of the vaping community. You have some skin in the game. You own a couple stores, I believe, right? Am I correct, Mike?
All we do, Alex, my son, and I just have our own product line. I don't even have a store. That's all we do is just product manufacturing.
Oh, okay. So your passion for vaping is based on your own personal reasons. Am I correct? No one put a gun to your head and made you making your own vaping liquid or product line?
No, it's when I started going around to stores to promote our product and to get some stores to pick us up, I very quickly looked and saw that there was so little advocacy going on in Northeast Ohio and subsequently in PA and things. I was appalled, really. And it started out as just something very small, and then all of a sudden it just grew, and now I'm out there and I'm talking to people and I'm shaking hands and I'm saying, hey, you got to get this done. Here's what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, where we are right now, Mike, is that we are watching this industry go downhill quickly. And I say that, with all the tongue-in-cheek, bittersweet messages I can give you, especially what happened with us in New Jersey last week with a 10 cents per mil tax and a exorbitant floor tax on inventory. We can talk about that later. But, you have to understand where I come from and why I'm so passionate about this, because of what I did, my past, my history, my own experience with vaping and with CBD and with getting well and my brother dying of cancer and all the people that I may have encouraged at some point to become smokers. And again, no one put a gun to their head, but smoking is the only thing that we hold a teenager accountable for the rest of their life until they really get diseased and die. And then, people say they were stupid, they should have never started. Well, like I said, the only thing that they're held accountable for is that if they were hooked on methamphetamines or fentanyl or cocaine or heroin, they'd be in rehab. But with smoking, you have to take it personally and have to live with the consequences of what tobacco addiction will do to you with 4,760 chemicals going into your body every time you inhale. So,
wow.
I am on this, what's the word? I'm on this
basically
road
you're on
try
a
to
mission.
educate people. Not that tobacco kills, everybody knows that, but I'm on the road to try to educate people as to why we have a problem now with the vaping community, tobacco harm reduction product.
And that's one hell of a change from what you were doing as a profession to getting to where you are now. And let me ask, so people get a little bit more of an understanding, what happened? What changed your mind when here you are, you're making, back then, one hell of a good paycheck for just a few days worth of work. What changed your mind to make you sever ties with that company?
What happened basically, Mike, was my brother was diagnosed with cancer. He was older than me. He was a smoker. And I had the unfortunate displeasure of going to see him in the hospital. And that was a time that my kids were coming home begging me to quit smoking, because in the 80s, the schooling was now giving information to their kids about your parents who smoke are going to get lung cancer and heart disease and die. And so in that time in the 80s, I was at the peak of my career, plus my brother was diagnosed with cancer. I had to make a decision based on the culture of the times. You know, and that's when people were coming out saying, if you smoke, you're a leper, you're a parasite, feeding off of other people, you're a pedophile because you're smoking around children, and it's child abuse, and you know, you can't smoke in cars, you can't. I mean, I was doing this. We were still smoking on an airplane. You couldn't smoke in rows 1 to 17, but you could smoke in 18 to 25. You know.
Yep.
And the whole common sense factor of smoking started to come to full fruition, and that was smoking kills. And that was in the 90s, late 80s, and that was after Surgeon General Luther Perry, the Surgeon General in 1964, said smoking kills, not tobacco kills, it says smoking kills. And the government didn't do a damn thing until 30 years later, and I got involved in that ride, that wave, to get educated, because now there's going to be money. Lawsuits are starting to hit the tobacco industry. They were paying out the wazoo with the Chip Malone case. One lady died of cancer, and the family sued the tobacco company, and you know, all they were asking for was $5 million, but the tobacco company defended it with $15 million worth of lawyers' fees to try to not set a precedent. Well, it didn't work, and the Chip Malone family won, but then it was overturned by the appellate court. So that's when the politics really started to come into play in the mid-'80s, late 80s. I had quit smoking in 88. I became the golden boy for the anti-tobacco movement, which basically are the American Cancer, Lung, Heart Association. I call them the body parts people. I was becoming the golden boy for campaigns for tobacco-free kids and American Legacy Foundation and the CDC and the AMA and World Health Organization. I was given in 1989 the World Health Organization Gold Medal of Honor for my stance against R.J. Reynolds. And you know what? I had to send it back 2 years ago, and basically I told the executive director of the World Health Organization to kindly take that medal she saved me and shove it, because I did no longer see it as a badge of honor with them trying to take away the best alternative for smokers to quit, which was vaping.
Yeah.
So you can see where my story gets this tapestry of my whole life, you know, from being a lifted man, being an anti-tobacco activist, then turning my back on the anti-tobacco people because they became as big tobacco and big pharmaceutical. So, you know, with that being said, I think shows that I do like now all the time with you and with Demetrius and Bill Tarling and, you know, Devin Bowers and all the shows that I've ever done. I decided I had to do my own show, which is my own podcast, which is called the David G. Model Citizen Podcast, which I'm not plugging tonight. I'm on your show, but I'm just telling you, I have 30 years of experience, and I've got to get out there and stories to tell. And I don't have 30 hours to spend with you on your show, Mike, but I certainly have enough information that might titillate some people who are smoking and then switch to vaping, and now they have to be congratulated and patted on the back for their effort, because finally they were able to quit smoking for the most part. Some may be dual using. I don't know. I don't care. It's not my business. But every cigarette they don't smoke, I'm grateful that there's an alternative that I'm going to fight for the rest of my life to make sure remains available if at all possible. So that's why I do shows like yours. I don't do it to promote myself. People know my story or they don't. They either like me or they don't. And I don't really care at this point in my life because I'm at the point where I'm above the opinions that other people have of me. And all I can do is tell my story and let the chips fall where they may and apologize for being influential in getting kids to start smoking now that they're my age and they're dying of lung cancer or heart disease or emphysema, story problems. I can only say, let's band together and fix the mistakes that we made. So we all make mistakes, but mine was a whopper. Okay, well, my mistake was a real whopper, and I'm trying to fix it any way I possibly can.
It's one of the things that I will tell you is that I found, I turned 50 this year. It's one of the things that I found is that the bigger the mistake that is made, you know, it's the converse that you can go to the other extreme when you're trying to either rectify it or do something about it because you have more knowledge, if you will, or more understanding. And there's nobody in the world that has the insight, information, and experience or past that you do. Hands down. You're one of a kind.
I think so. But unfortunately, the vaping community hasn't embraced me with that. You know, I'm not a member of all of the state organizations. I'll tell you that story later about New Jersey and how screwed up we are here. But the people who are running this industry, whether it be the VTA, the AVA, SFATA, CASA, the state organizations, NBS, whatever organization, and I'm just going to put it out there, Mike, whatever organization out there who is trying to either raise money, crowdfund, GoFundMe with money to try to be raised for lobbying, I'm just going to put it out there and say lobbying is not working. We don't have enough wins on our column, on our scoreboard. We need to put money into public relations as well because I think the vaping war is going to be won in the court of public opinion and not in the court of law because I think there's too many corrupt politicians that have been paid for too long by big tobacco and big pharmaceutical. And now the anti-tobacco side, which is Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, Cancer, Lung, and Heart, they're all in cahoots, Mike. They're all in cahoots together to keep that money flowing in at the troughs because it's so profitable, and they are so damned against vaping because they've seen it's not enough to where it's going to ruin tobacco sales. But when you have 9 or 10 million Americans who no longer smoke and who aren't paying $8 to $10 for a pack of cigarettes, or in New York, $14 to $15 a pack, that's a lot of money that's threatening the livelihoods of a lot of our politicians who go in most likely with a good intent, and that is to help humanity. But isn't it funny how every politician leaves office a hell of a lot richer than when they went in?
Yeah. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about, definitely, the taxes and things.
When you bring that up,
go ahead.
When you bring that up to the organizations who I love everybody out there. I mean, everybody knows who I am, and I know who they are. We just don't hang out. I don't go to after parties with them. I don't go to the VTA conferences. I didn't go to the Global Forum on Nicotine in Warsaw, Poland. I go to these conventions once in a while, and I don't go as a pole dancer or as entertainment. I go and I try to do activism to help people like Stig Ramsey, to help people like Ray Conley, to help people like Alex Clark and Demetrius and Phil Bichardo and all the other advocates out there. Because I don't like the word advocacy, Mike. I hope you don't get confused by that.
No, you and I talked about that.
It's defined, in my opinion, advocacy is defined as supporting people who can't basically help themselves, which is bullshit. Every smoker has the ability to change their direction of their life when they're ready. And if there's an easier way to do it, whether it be through tobacco harm reduction, I don't care if it's through snus or vaping, I don't even care if it's using a product from big tobacco like Mark 10 or Views or IQOS. Anything you do not inhale with combustion of 4,700 chemicals, gases, poisons, irritants, vapors, and pesticides is tobacco harm reduction in my book. I may not like the fact that monopolies are taking over vaping like Philip Morris International and Altria and R.J. Reynolds and Warlord. There's stories that I can tell you, and then you can hear them on my podcast. But I was the face of Von Earl, which is one of the first pod systems of e-liquid and e-cigarettes. And 4 months after I became the face of Von Earl, they turned around and sold it to Imperial Tobacco, who owns Winston. So without any knowledge whatsoever, without any discussion, they just threw me under the bus. I've been thrown under the bus so many times it doesn't even hurt anymore. But I keep doing it. I keep getting up, and I keep trying to do what I can, not for advocacy, but for activism. Because activism, to me, is defined as doing something aggressively to have social and political change. Advocacy, we are kissing the asses of these politicians. They're the ones who started the problem to begin with. We're raising all of this money through lobbying, and we're trying to change the minds of a politician. It doesn't work that way, Mike. Politicians aren't going to say, you know what, I screwed up, I need to rethink it. Once in a while, maybe, but for the most part, they're going to stick to their guns. They're going to find ways to justify their laws, the bad laws that they're making, because they're not good people. They're bad people. So when I say that, it kind of offends people who are out there on the front lines, going to the OMB in Washington and going down to meet senators and Congress people. We're running out of time, Mike. The clock is ticking.
And that's
and
what
we don't have time in the next 4 or 5 years to change the minds of 60 politicians who will now vote for changing the predicate date of 2022. It's not going to happen. We're already almost at 2019. So we have very short or very little window of opportunity to go out there and make a difference, and I'm going to try to make it in the court of public opinion. So, yeah, I'm not really respected in the political world because I don't have a filter on my mouth. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm just somebody who screwed up royally. I have a story to tell, and I figured, you know what? If I can't tell it on programs that are sponsored by SFATA or CASA or AVA or VTA, it's my own, which is why I have my own podcast. And I've been on Demetrius' show, Smoke Free Radio, several times, and he's probably one of the few people that I can count on and I trust. Everybody else, I have very cautious optimism as to where this vaping industry is going in the next 18 months, because right now it sucks pretty bad.
Yeah, I agree with you 110% and a little bit more. And folks, I'm glad that I put the disclaimer on very early in the show and said this is a mature show. This is not for people that are sitting on the fence. This is for people that are in need of some information or trying to make up their mind about something. Or this is a guy, folks, that does not joke around. I was warned, literally, I was warned by Kevin Crowley earlier today and said, hit him with the hard questions because he's going to respond and you're going to get the whole truth. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Well, I'm sitting here talking very slow, which is not usually how I talk because of the reverb that I have in the sound of talking to you and your audience. So again, I want to apologize for that because I'm trying to be very deliberate so I don't step on my words.
No, I appreciate
right
that.
Right now, I've had it. I'm about a month and a half away of stopping what I'm doing, basically, and going out and rescuing dogs or puppies and animals because, I get some respect from animals who you rescue. I have a couple rescue animals. They go outside to go to the bathroom. They lick you. They don't ask questions. They don't disrespect you. They do what they're told, basically. But in this industry, I got to tell you, Mike, it's very frustrating as hell. That's James Jarvis. James Jarvis is one of the hardest workers we have in activism, and he's out there trying to do something in his community, and everywhere he goes, there's problems. I'm involved with SFATA and CASA and AVA and VTA on the sidelines. They don't call me for opinions, and that's fine. My opinions do not sidle up to their core mission, and their core mission is to try to change tobacco and vaping and tobacco harm reduction in the courts, and it's not going to happen. Mark my word. Take my predictions. It's not going to happen that way. We've run out of time. Right now, the FDA is coming down on flavors in California. We saw it. It's coming. They just happened to get it suspended in New York for a while. But that's where they're going next. And Gottlieb, the FDA director, is coming down hard on the Juul people and the Bo and the Jaywell and All the other pod systems, because they're being marketed, they're not being marketed to kids. The only ones that's marketing it to kids is the campaign for tobacco-free kids by bringing it up and coming up with misinformation and lies. I mean, that's what it's all about.
And that
Just like
has
what happened this week. I don't know if you heard about it.
That's been one of the biggest things.
Explosion in Massachusetts, up in Salem.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that, Mike?
No, I haven't heard the whole thing.
Okay, well, there was an explosion at a I'm trying to look for the paperwork on it, but basically, it was in Salem, Mass. There was an explosion, and 30 people went to the hospital because of chlorine inhalation. Tammy Chan was a reporter from a Boston affiliate of CBS who said that the manufacturing plant was an e-cigarette and vaping manufacturing, and it was all over the news. It was carried by several other reporters and several other stations. And it comes to find out it had nothing to do with vaping. There was absolutely nothing about vaping or e-cigarettes. It was a manufacturing plant that built flexible coils for heaters and had nothing whatsoever to do with vaping or e-cigarettes. But it got all over the airwaves. You know, here we go again. E-liquids and e-cigarettes are killing people. Chlorine. There's no chlorine in the vaping devices. There's no chlorine.
No, there is not.
It's just bullshit that no one wants to call people out on, and I do. And the people that I want to work with who are running SFATA and CASA and the ABA and VTA, their hands are tied by having to play nice in the sandbox because they're trying to make sure that they put their nice clothes on, go to Washington, go to the Hill, and they walk around, shake hands. You know what? To me, you might as well just stay home, sit on the toilet, and read Reader's Digest because you're not making a difference. And that's not to say the people going aren't really working hard and shouldn't be appreciated. I'm not saying that at all. So don't come back, listeners, and say that I don't appreciate what I really do.
Nope, I know that you do. In my
opinion, they're doing it all wrong. And they are wasting time in trying to get politicians who are bad people making bad laws because they've been influenced and paid by big tobacco and big pharma for so long that they don't know when to tell the truth. There's no integrity relationship. They're not close to integrity in Washington. We all know that. We all know it's about money. I say it out loud, and people look at me like I have a third eye in the middle of my forehead, that I'm not cooperative. Well, I'm not cooperative when it comes to people dying prematurely when they have had an alternative for the last 8 years, and you got people in government trying to take that away. We need to remove the bullseye and the target off the back of vapors who once were smokers, because now vapors are being treated the same way smokers have been treated in the past as lepers and poor citizens, and they shouldn't be able to adopt children or foster children. And it's just nonsense, and I just don't want to see it happening anymore. So my show, the podcast that I do, my vape radio show with Rod and Pablo, I do because I want to try to get, like what you said early on, if you have somebody in your family that's smoking and you happen to be a vapor and they haven't been able to be convinced yet, I'm not selling religion. I'm not selling God. I'm not selling, salvation. What I'm selling is the truth. And the truth is something that should be heard by our media, but we're not going to hear it in the media because they've been bought and paid for as well. Just like our Congress, we have the best Congress and Senate money can buy. And I'm not going to sit by and at my age and think that I can't make a difference by telling my story, which does seem to have some sort of merit because no one has called me a liar in the last 20 years. I've said the same thing. And I'm sure people who know me are sick and tired of hearing me talk about it. Maybe I should move on to something else.
No.
So I just think that I need to continue to do what I do with shows like yours, Mike. I'll help you in any way. Demetrius knows how to reach me. I'll help him anytime. I love him. I think he's a great man. He and Phil are his hell. And what I try to do is I try to be all things to many people as I can. And sometimes it gets hard because I get frustrated and tired and annoyed and pissed off and angry, just like everybody else. So I have to hold that in check and maybe come back with shows like yours and say, hey, what questions do you have of me? How can I calmly answer these questions so they make sense for the people who don't want to hear rants all the time and bitching and complaining? I'm tired. I'm too old to be ranting all the time. I want to be an educator, and I want to be somebody that people want to listen to get information that might help them take that road, that navigation, that landscape road that they need to see for beneficial on which side the grass is greener.
And that's one of the biggest things that it is ironic. We're going to cover that here in just a moment. But here's just one quick question before I segue into the next part. Did you find that you had a very difficult time stepping away from big tobacco? As in, did they try to coerce you to stay? Did they give you a problem when they found out what you were going to do? Was there anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, when I quit smoking in 1988, Mike, it was on the Great American Smokeout. You know that one day a year,
I
American
remember.
Cancer Society gets together with American Lung, and they say, turn in your cigarettes, we'll give you a sandwich, we'll give you a hoagie, we'll give you a pack of gum. Just quit smoking for one day. That's the day I did it, back in 1988. No one had ever turned his back on big tobacco before I did. At that time, within 24 hours after going public and quitting smoking on that day, I was on every radio, every talk show, every TV show, including Good Morning America, CBS with Harry Smith. I was on with Joan London. I was on with Ted Koppel and Peter Jennings as ABC Person of the Week. So I was pretty was a muckety muck, you know. I was somebody to be listened to, and from that point on, within about 2 weeks, I started getting death threats. I started to get things happening to me that I had to move my family out of town for 10 days. My car caught fire in my driveway, coincidentally.
Wow.
A lot of little things. A lot of people would think that I was just paranoid. And later on, we found out it wasn't paranoia. It was something that was happening. They tried to sue me because in my contract as the Winston man, I had a clause that said I couldn't say or do anything that would be considered anti-tobacco, but I didn't read that part. So I went ahead and did it anyway. And they tried to sue me, but they lost because everything I said was public information. Everything I said was public knowledge. Everything I said had been corroborated with everybody else prior to that. So they withdrew the lawsuit, and I went to a federal judge, and he threw it out. So with
Wow.
that took about the first 6 months. Within those 6 months, I became the golden boy for the anti-tobacco side, which is what I told you was American Cancer, Lung, and Heart. Started spending all my time in schools all over the world trying to get kids to never start smoking by doing a comedy program, kind of like a George Carlin type comedy program. You know who George Carlin is?
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of a program I did. It was in your face, on the stage, all over it like a horse's ass, you know, trying to get kids to laugh because kids listen when they're entertained. You know, I wouldn't show pictures of black lungs and clogged arteries when I did these school programs because usually the kids, the grosser the better, so they weren't affected by black lungs and clogged arteries. I don't think a pink lung is attractive myself, but we know it's safe, you know, it's healthier. So within a year, I was probably the keynote speaker for the anti-tobacco movement, who was now raising millions and millions and millions of dollars from the government to do cessation programs, intervention programs, prevention programs, cessation programs. So I was covering all bases for them because no one had done what I had done. So finally, big tobacco got off my case because they knew that I wasn't going to shut up. So they just started telling people that I was just a former disgruntled employee. You know how they work. They'll just come up with something. And that's how it all started in 1990, 92, all the way up to 2000. And then I was involved with the master settlement fiasco, which was the biggest hoax perpetrated on the American system back in 1998 and 99. So that's another story. And all this was talked about in A Billion Lives, a documentary. But unfortunately, A Billion Lives was only seen by about 2% of the vapors, which is pretty depressing.
That's something that I want to talk to you about here.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah, that's just unreal. I want to be able to talk to you about A Billion Lives here in a couple of minutes. But first, let me ask you a quick question. What was the first part of vaping that you got into? As in, how did you find or stumble or get into vaping instead of smoking?
Well, in 2006, I had it with the anti-tobacco side because they were as corrupt as big tobacco, because they were now trying to tell me what to say and what not to say. I was causing too much of a stink, and American Cancer, American Lung, American Heart were all in cahoots with big tobacco because they were all sleeping together, come up with this master settlement agreement, that they've now committed to where they all are going to be wealthy for the next 25 years or in perpetuity. So in 2006, I stopped working for the anti-tobacco people because they were, like I said, as corrupt. 2006 and 7, I started hearing about e-cigarettes. I started hearing about Han Luk, the Chinese guy who was coming up with a device that you could inhale, but there's no combustion, so it's a lot safer. But they were terrible, just like Oliver Kershaw would say. It was just awful. But the concept was what I was interested in. I started researching it in 2007 and 8. And in 2009, I was pretty active involved with seeing the e-cigs that were coming on the market, like Blue, and of course, LifeSign, and there were several other different e-liquids, or not e-liquids, e-cigarettes that were being sold in convenience stores and somewhat online. So I got really interested in the concept, let alone the device, because I was no longer a smoker, so I didn't need it. You know what I mean?
Yep, that I do.
Okay, so what happened with me in 2007, 8, in that area, I got calls from a lot of people who were seeing the future of vaping. And it wasn't considered vaping then, it was considered e-cigarette. So in 2009, the FDA ruled with the lawsuit that was brought on by Enjoy and Cetera. The lawsuit said that the FDA cannot regulate e-cigarettes, and that was in December of 2009 by Judge Kessler, I believe, in the Ninth Circuit Court. So everybody was relieved that the FDA is not going to regulate e-cigarettes. So what happened? 2010, 11, they started coming up with the second generation of devices. Then the mods started to come into play in 2013 with e-liquids, and then people were making e-liquid in their bathrooms and in their basements and in their garages, slapping labels on it, calling it premium juice. They're now put in with a mod or a device with a coil and a battery and an atomizer. So it all took off around 2009, 10, and 11, and maybe 12. And that's when it hit the fan, because people saw how profitable it was, because now you're able to get the nicotine you want. It had been as safe for you then, because the way it was manufactured, it wasn't manufactured in a clean lab or an iOS 7 lab or 6 lab or 5 lab. There was no clinical trials on it. So that's when things started to really go haywire around 2011, 12, and 13. And here we are 5 years later. We got a lot of millionaires now who have made a fortune on e-liquid manufacturing, distribution, mods, box mods, customized mods, and e-liquid galore. So, I don't know how many ways you can change the flavoring of strawberry or caramel or apple, but somehow we found a way to do it. So to answer your question, it was probably around 2007 and 8 when I really, really saw the potential of e-liquid, e-cigarettes, but I never jumped on the bandwagon to make it. I just wanted to research it and see how safe it was going to be as an alternative for smokers. And, of course, my predictions of 2010, 11, and 12 came true when I said e-liquids and mods and box mods and e-cigarettes and pod systems are going to be the wave of the future. And I predicted that in 2012 when I met, a few people who said, why don't you get into business? I said, no, I'd rather be an activist and an advocate and a researcher and an educator. Maybe I probably should have put my time in becoming a manufacturer like so many millionaires now we have in the vaping industry. My bad.
Yeah, you're doing exactly the right thing as you're going along. And we're going to touch base on that here just a little bit also, because you not only have your own e-liquid line, but you also get into a product of CBD, and we're going to cover that in a few minutes. If you can you hold on for just a minute? I need to do the sponsors for just a moment. So do you have a moment? Take a break, grab something to drink, and I'll put this up, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Hey now, this is Dimitri with Smoke Free Radio reminding you to please show some love to our wonderful sponsors. Without them, there would be no Smoke Free Radio, and they are as follows. All the way from Florida, Moon Mountain Vapor, with locations in Florida, and their liquid available for wholesale and retail, moonmountainvapor.com. Some of the best custards and tobaccos on the market from the Brickwills Vaping Company. The lovely Shell with a vapor bar. Locations in Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And of course online at thevaporbar.com. And who says you can't have award-winning e-liquid without cartoon characters? That's exactly what you're going to get at theplumeroom.com.
Yeah.
And finally, of course, the Vaping Advocate magazine that has generously provided the telephone lines for you to communicate with us. Thank you for your support. And finally, for you, the listener, don't forget to check out the coupons and codes page on Smoke Free Radio. Pick up some e-liquid and save some money. From all of us here at Smoke Free Radio, thank you for your continued support.
Yes, sir.
Michael?
Right here, sir.
Can you call my other phone? This phone's driving me nuts. I can't even hear myself.
I sure can.
Well, let me give you the number.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Make sure. Yeah. Saying here. Okay.
Hey, Mike?
Yeah, I don't want you to read it over the air, and I don't have a way to block this out real quick.
Oh.
Are you in front of your PC?
Yeah.
All right, hold on 1 second. We'll do it this way.
Let me just message you.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to have you do.
I'll message you right now. Hold on. Because I can't even hear myself talking to you because it's frustrating as hell.
My apology about that.
No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, buddy. Okay, here's my number. I'm sending it to you now. Yeah, just send it. Now I'll turn this other phone off because I think maybe it'll be better.
Got it. I'm going to go ahead and hang up, and I'll give you a quick call on the other line there.
Okay, buddy.
Now, if it goes out like that,
Wait.
I'm just.
Folks, we'll see if this will be a little bit better for him. If not, we might have to drop back and punt a little bit.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Is that any better for you?
Oh my goodness, yes, so much better.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm not sure why it was giving so much reverb in the other phone.
I don't know. I have a cheap phone, and I'm using my wife's phone now, so I just apologize if I sounded like I had a stroke when I was talking to you because I couldn't hear myself.
No, it's perfectly fine.
I kept hearing myself in my other ear here. Much better.
Yep, I've even got people saying that it's much better coming across even now. So that's a wonderful thing.
All right, so apologize to your listeners for me, will you?
No, it's no problem at all. Okay, I'm going to get
now
back
I can
on track
talk
real quick.
Now I can talk intelligently.
You get back on track here.
Now it doesn't sound like I have. All right, so now we can start getting busy.
There you go. I'm going to have. There are so many questions when it comes to vaping and everything else that I want to ask. It's not even funny. But let me ask, when you started vaping, did you start with a tobacco flavor, a fruit flavor? What grabbed your fancy when you first started vaping?
Well, for me, like I said before, I had quit smoking a long time ago. So I basically was vaping because I liked the hand-to-mouth, but I always vaped zero nicotine. I never really got into the flavors as much. I always liked coffee or tobacco flavor. Which is what I have now for my line. Because I think when people quit smoking, they don't really want to jump from tobacco right into rainbow sherbet. You know, that's an acquired taste. So for me, I never vape any nicotine at all, other than maybe 3 or 6 milligrams, just for shits and giggles. Because there's no reason for me to go back to a high nic device or a high nic liquid. But I do know how important it is for a smoker who's now transitioning to vaping, has the high nicotine content of 18 or 24 milligrams in a flavor of tobacco or coffee or something else that's close to what they were vaping or smoking before. But if you have such an insidious attitude toward tobacco because you've got heart disease or lung disease or whatever, you don't want anything to do with tobacco, so you have to have options of, subtle fruit flavors or coconut or peppermint or something. So for me, I always like tobacco and coffee flavors. I've never been a real huge flavor nut to have, cherry or apple or plum, which is all good. People, whatever keeps you off of combustible tobacco. But for me, I always like the small devices. I've never owned a box mod in my life.
Really?
I've never exponentially grown into, having a box mod and having to change the coils and change the cotton and blow clouds. And I'm not a cloud chaser or cloud chucker. But I understand those people who do enjoy it. So, okay, do what you need to do. So for me, it was a tobacco or a coffee flavor, which I think anybody who's going to transition from smoking to vaping, that they go with a tobacco or coffee, just to get used to it, and then they can change as they need to, as their palate changes. That's just my opinion.
And that's something that I think a lot of people would find extremely interesting, because here again, going from being the Winston man and smoking for an extended period of time and switching into vaping, that the people that are just now opening up and thinking about vaping or opening up and looking into it, to be able to hear you turn around and say these kinds of things, I think it's going to grab their attention. It's like, oh my God.
I need an audience. Right now the audience that we have is like you and I. When we do our shows, we're preaching to the choir. Because they've already switched from smoking to vaping for the most part. What we need to do is encourage every one of those vapors to see the benefits of what they've been able to see from vaping, to get their loved ones and their friends and encourage them when they're ready with devices that are going to suit the need of that individual smoker who's transitioning to vaping. Because everybody's different. You know that.
Yes, very much
so.
Some
people who are going to like, there are people who want to spend $150 for a nice mod, or they want to go out and spend, a couple $100 for different flavors. That's why so many people go to these expos and conventions, because there's so many different varieties to choose from. But by the time you're done, you get, vapor tongue, and you can't tell strawberry from pineapple. You can't tell pineapple from apple, because you vape so much. And there are a lot of people who just vape from morning till night, and that's okay too. It's up to them. That's their personal choice.
Yep.
But for me, and to get a smoker to transit, a smoker generally is not smoking, from the time he or she wakes up in the morning, because they have to go to work, they have to go function in public. They can't smoke in public anywhere anymore. And they were hoping that the vaping was going to be their alternative as a stealth type of device where they can go in and get a hit of nicotine and then not come out smelling like an ashtray because they're not getting anything other than the 5 practical ingredients that are in vaping, which is your propylene glycol, your vegetable glycol, your glycerin, your nicotine if you want, and your flavor of your choice. And
that's rather big. And I'm going to guess that played a big role when you created your own line, because I looked through there and I saw that there is one tobacco flavor and then a couple of other flavors that you've got. As a matter of fact, I'm going to splash this up on the screen so people can actually see, because I'm running a Facebook Live at the same time that I'm talking with you. So some people can check this out on Facebook, and they're able to see the pictures that I'm popping up. But here it is, your David G. It's a signature line of e-liquid that people can buy.
Yeah, well, the first one is Cheat and Death. It's a tobacco flavor. And the other one is Dreamland, which is more of a coffee flavor. And like I said, people who really hate tobacco flavors because they've been diagnosed with a respiratory disease or a heart ailment from smoking, they want nothing to do with it. Then you have to give them something that's a little bit more beneficial, like a Tropical Paradise, which is a subtle fruity flavor. Now, as I said, this is not e-liquid for an experienced vapor. You're not going to have, because of the ratio of BG and PG. I had a line up in Canada until today. I pulled it as of today because of Canadian politics. That was for your experienced vapors because it was a different, it wasn't a mouth to lung. So what we have now is e-liquids in the United States for transitioning smokers to vaping, and then maybe I'll add to it later with a different ratio of PG/VG. But that's going to be something I'll decide later. My goal right now is to get 40 million remaining smokers on the wagon to see, hey, vaping is the better alternative. It's 95% safer based on everything we've known, everything we've researched, which is replicatable, everything that we have seen and proven to be true. I just need to get the word out in activism, and I'm not going to have to climb the Statue of Liberty to do it, to where I get the attention of the media.
Yeah.
So I have to do it on your show. I have to do it on my own podcast. But the David G. Signature Series is made by Vapes Gone Wild down in Newnan, Georgia. I paired up with them because they had already met the requirements of the FDA of August 2016 credentials and regulation and the criteria of listing the ingredients. All we did was rebrand the name. They were already there. It's not a brand new flavor. One that I chose after many, many decisions that I wanted to make sure that I had the right flavors for the transitioning smoker to vaping. Then on top of that, I decided that this may be a good segue to what you were talking about earlier, unless you have other questions.
And that's one of the things that I do want to touch base on real quick here in just a few minutes. But I'm going to try a little bit more of technology, and I'm not sure how this is going to work. I'm going to put somebody on the phone, and I'm going to let them... Hold on one second. All right, now we should have this other gentleman on the phone. Can you hear me on the other second phone?
I can.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Mr. Austin Hopper. He asked me...
Oh, my God.
There you go.
Mike, how are you, Brother David? It's always good to hear you, brother. I love your passion. You're just an amazing guy, and what I will tell you is all of the experience you had being the Winston man is giving you so much more insight than we have, and the ability you have and the passion that you have, undeniably fantastic. And you are honored to have in the vaping industry.
I'm sending you a hug through the phone, my buddy.
So good to talk to you, brother.
Same here. How are you?
You know, I'm doing well. I'm over here in Arizona doing stuff with Kid Puncher and rolling out some new stuff and new processes. And, you know, it's just been an absolute blessing. It's nice to know that vaping is still alive and that there's so many passionate people. And,
Yep.
if you need a hug and you need somebody to lick you to keep you in the vape game, I will come over once a month and do that.
I know that. I can always count on you. I'd always like to touch base with you, but life gets in the way. You know how it goes. And I'm having surgery at the end of the month. I'm having a big chunk of my colon taken out, and that's probably too much information for the listeners because. But I will be down. Oh, buddies.
Well, sounds good. Yeah, I went in for surgery. I had them take my ego out, but they said they couldn't get it removed, so I'm stuck with it.
Oh, you haven't changed a bit, Austin. Would you please stay in touch with me?
Absolutely. How's the line doing, brother?
Good, real good. I had to stop the Canadian line, like I just told Mike, because of the laws up there with Bill S5. You know, it got decimated in Quebec with Bill 44, and then Ontario was 174, and S5 came in. So my line down here is really good, but what I'm really excited about, along with my e-liquid line, is my CBD with Pinnacle. So that's something I'm really, really excited about that as well.
Yeah, I need to get some samples of your stuff over to KP in Arizona.
I think I sent you my number, right?
Yeah, I've got you.
Okay, buddy.
You can't get away from me.
I won't. I've never tried.
Now, for all the people that are listening, I need to take just a moment and explain something. On one phone line, we've got the former Winston man, who is just a walking legend. And you were talking about surgery there real quick. And folks, this guy had leg surgery. He had a blood clot in his leg. He wasn't even allowed to be on any kind of plane. And he's down at the expo in Tennessee because he believes so much of what he is doing for the vapor industry. He's walking around, and the picture that I'm showing right now is the one I took with you in the cane. But I'm standing there, I'm going, oh my God, this man's a force of nature. So we've got this guy on one phone line. Now, for some people that might not know, on the other phone line is Austin Hopper. And Austin, just for a moment to get people to understand, can you tell me just real quick what the major highlights that you have done in the vaping industry?
Well, first of all, I quit smoking because of vaping, so that was probably the biggest plus in my personal category.
Awesome.
You know, I worked for Space Jam, Cosmic Fog, Cutwood, Holdfast, Coil Glaze. I own the Vaping Advocate magazine, which we actually sponsor the phone lines for this particular show. You know, we're just involved, and, you know, the great thing is I'm just one amongst many in the community. You know, I got very lucky early on because with my gregarious personality, I got to MC a lot of shows around the world, and I still do today. I'm looking forward to World Vapor Expo in Miami in September. I've been the host of that show since the inception, and it's just an amazing time, and to be able to work with so many great brands, it's just been phenomenal. And, you know, you and I with Two Stone Vapings, we went through and redid some labels and those kind of things and did some rebranding. It's just been an honor and a privilege to be involved in such a community where, in my opinion, it wants to do well together. And I look for people like yourself and David who want to further the vape community and make it better and make it stronger. And I think we do that. What we can't do by ourselves, we can do together.
And that's...
You're an awesome man, Austin. You are an awesome... I met you 4 years ago in Chattanooga.
Thank you for that.
It's the one thing that I keep stumbling back and forth with. It's just to have the two of you here at the very same time. I'm like a little kid. This is kind of awesome. It's amazing, and you mentioned it. When you get a large group of people together at an expo or when you're going to a shop or anything like that, we all get together and we turn around and it's not about ego anymore. It's always about vaping. It's about taking people off of combustible tobacco. We all have our stories and we all have our anecdotes and these little things, but everybody is there for the very same reason, we all turn around and we're all passionate about. Well, most of us are passionate about it.
I was down in Chattanooga 2 weeks ago, and we got about 300 people to give up smoking because Aspire was giving out free starter kits with the Breeze 2 and the e-liquid of their choice, and they gave $10,000 back to 4 of the advocacy groups. Anybody who paid money to get in, they turned around and gave the door entrance fees to advocacy, and they are what's right with the industry. So I'll be a big part of their life, hopefully, because they're doing what is necessary in keeping the level of awareness proportionate to the good that vaping can do, just like Austin said. So when you have people like me and Austin and other icons, all you can do is just say, hey, I wake up tomorrow and I hope I can do better today, and hope we can get more people to the day. But it's a very frustrating business, right, Austin? Would you agree?
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. And I think a lot of it has to do with, like with everybody, we all have an opinion. We all want to be heard. Sometimes we need to be able to channel that voice in one particular direction. I noticed James Jarvis is on and Fig is on, and, there's certain things that are going on in certain parts of the country that need a different touch, and that we need to leave it to the people that are doing well in those states to defeat things, and how do we support them the most. And a lot of the time, and I'm guilty, I think I have a better idea, I want to do it this way, and there are just people that are in the trenches on the front line more than I am that have a better understanding of what we need to do. And I need to put, as Mike said, my ego aside and allow them to direct me on what I need to do.
I agree. I do the same thing.
Now, Austin, with all the knowledge that you have and things like that, what might be one of, I don't want to say obscure questions, but what is one of the things that you would want to ask David about his former life as the Winston Man, or as a vapor, or as his own line? What would you ask him to spark conversation among other people?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is I think David has so much experience with working on the other side with big tobacco and seeing how they're doing it. And I think the big thing is, how do we grab their attention? Because we don't have the money that big tobacco has. I don't really think that big tobacco is necessarily our enemy, because they don't want flavor bans, they don't want age restrictions more than we do in states. How do we make the enemy of my enemy my friend? How do we build an alliance with them that allows us to be more stronger as a group? Because right now we're classified as a tobacco product, which we both know that's like saying ketchup is a vegetable that's made from a tomato. However, how do we form an alliance with tobacco to defeat these bills, whether it's a flavor ban, an age ban, and those type of things? I think that's the bigger picture, in my opinion, is how do we win as a tobacco product, because that's what we're classified currently.
I've always stood firm on the fact I hate big tobacco so bad I can't see straight sometimes, but then I have to, back up and regroup and say, hey, keep your friends close and your enemies closer attitude, which I believe it. And now you see it with Philip Morris International giving $1 billion to Derek Yock from the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. Now, that's kind of like an attitude. What could possibly go wrong with that one? Foundation for a Smoke-Free World paid for with $1 billion from Philip Morris International. Now, on the surface, most people would say, you know what, that's just people selling out. They're just buying their shills. They want to have their hands in the game. And I got some guarantees, because I was really pissed off and angry when I heard that. And I had to back up and apologize to Derek Yock, who's the executive director of the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, because he basically, and people like Clive Bates and Oliver Kershaw and Dave Sweener and all these muckety mucks, and I say that in a loving way, the people smarter than me, he said, they reminded me that Derek Yock is not going to let big tobacco control what his ultimate goal is, and that is to have a smoke-free, combustible world. Now, I have to buy that and believe the people that, like you said, big tobacco does not have to be our enemy. They've already admitted that they've lied. They've already admitted that they have spiked tobacco with more nicotine to keep people addicted. They've already admitted that they targeted and marketed kids. So I've been vindicated for the last 30 years, the same thing that I've been saying. So I think it's time to gather the troops, sit down with the people, not campaign for tobacco-free kids or Cliff Douglas or Matt Myers or Cheryl Heaton at American Legacy, if she's still there, or Stanton Glantz and all the other people out there that are trying to make the lives miserable for not only smokers but now vapors. You know, when you got institutions like Roswell Park Institute saying that vaping is safer, when you got the United Kingdom Royal College of Physicians saying it's 95% safer, and our people aren't even listening to that, but big tobacco now knows that the jig is up, and they're putting money into stopping the flavor ban. I don't know how much money they put into not blowing smoke out in California, but I know it was quite a bit of money to help Stefan Didak, defeat the flavor, which it didn't work. With all that money going into stopping the flavors, it still wasn't able to stop the flavor ban in San Francisco. So I think you're right, Austin, that we need to come together and we have to play by the tobacco company's playbook and join forces and not make big tobacco, who I despise, the ultimate enemy. The ultimate enemy is big government and big pharmaceutical, in my opinion, that is trying to take away for people.
Uh-oh. Did we lose David? I'm going to guess that he dropped out. Austin, can you still hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, we have just run into some technical difficulty. I don't know what happened at that. Austin, are you still on the line? Folks, I'm going to try and reconnect with these guys real quick. There's one. Austin, do I still have you here? Boy, I have no idea what happened with all of that. All of a sudden, we're going good, and then everything just turned around and took an absolute dump. Let's see if we can't do a little bit about that real quick. You love technology when it works, and you hate it when it does not. And as Bill Tarling here in the chat room mentioned, we've got a lot of storms that are coming through our way, and it may have affected some of the phone lines. I don't know if it affected all of them. Let's see if we can't put all this back together real quick. My apologies, everybody. I'm working as we go along to see if I can't reconnect both these gentlemen. Yeah, Kevin, it looks like the FDA kidnapped everybody. You'll hear a bunch of beeps, whistles, and everything else as we go along. All right, we might have reconnected one. And I believe this one is Austin. Austin, can you hear me? I'm seeing that he's showing up, and I don't know where it's going to. Again, my apology while we have an unknown technical difficulty. David, can you hear me? Oh, I love technology when it works, but right now I can see both these gentlemen on the phone line, and I can't get them to connect. Yeah, there's a very good one and very true one, Mr. Jarvis. I should have put the nicotine warning up. We didn't have the nicotine warning, folks. The FDA done shut everything down. Now, please understand, I am joking about that. Let me see if I can reconnect. Mr. Hopper, can you hear that? And no matter what it is that I'm doing, we are still in a state of being disconnected. Hopefully I can get both of these gentlemen back online, because we're right in the middle of a discussion that I want to ask them a couple of questions. In the meantime, I tell you what, while I work on this, just to get everybody a little bit of something besides me sitting here in dead silence, I'm going to go ahead and put our sponsorship material back up real quick. Just don't take it poorly. It is not the vaping advocates' fault for the phone lines. They provide it. It's the idiot that's running them that's having a problem.
Hey now, this is Dimitri with Smoke Free Radio reminding you to please show some love to our wonderful sponsors. Without them, there would be no Smoke Free Radio, and they are as follows. All the way from Florida, Moon Mountain Vapor, with locations in Florida, and their liquid available for wholesale and retail, moonmountainvapor.com. Some of the best custards and tobaccos on the market from the Brickwills Vaping Company. The lovely Shell with a vapor bar, locations in Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And of course online at thevaporbar.com. And who says you can't have award-winning e-liquid without cartoon characters? That's exactly what you're going to get at theplumeroom.com. And finally, of course, the Vaping Advocate magazine that has generously provided the telephone lines for you to communicate with us. Thank you for your support. And finally, for you, the listener, don't forget to check out the coupons and codes page on Smoke Free Radio. Pick up some e-liquid and save some money. From all of us here at Smoke Free Radio, thank you for your continued support.
Going to see if I can't recreate this entire event right off the bat here. Here again, try just to reconnect everything all together. And by the looks of it right now, it is actually the Blog Talk Radio is having an issue with all of this. Let's see if I can reconnect. I've got you on the phone on my end. Mr. Goerlitz, can you hear me? It is having just an awful time trying to connect anything altogether. I'm going to give this one more shot and try to reconnect everybody. If I can't, then we're just going to kind of plow ahead just for a few minutes here. We've only got about half an hour left out of all of this. Now, while that part is rebooting, earlier we had a wonderful little piece of segment as we were going along. It's Mr. David Goerlitz, the former Winston man, and we were joined by Mr. Austin Hopper. And hopefully I can put both of these guys back together for just a few more minutes while we have the time. But, folks, I'll tell you something. It is just an amazing kind of thing having Mr. Goerlitz. David is just an amazing guy because his perspective on all of the things that are going on is just amazing. He's a one of a kind man that has information and insight that I don't think very many people could even come close to doing. We'll give this one more shot and see if it can reconnect. It's got the little spin wheel going around and round and round, and hopefully we can reconnect because I would very much like to get back with both of these gentlemen to be able to talk to them for a few more minutes here. But it looks like we might have been disconnected either by storms or something because the technical side on this end, it just is not reconnecting with most of what's happening. The Spreaker studio is still moving right along. It's still saying that we are live and doing well, but it is the unfortunate side. The Blog Talk Radio that I use for the phone lines, Blog Talk Radio right now is having an absolute meltdown. So they might have been hit with storms And I apologize about that. It is one of those things that when technology works, it's a wonderful thing. When it doesn't, it's just absolute not happening. So unfortunately, for that right now, we're kind of in an unknown area because I don't. Let's see if I can do something else real quick. I don't know. I've got David on a different kind of side here. He's probably going to be able to hear me, and I can't hear anything about him. So unfortunately, that's not going to work either for this evening. We're going to reschedule some of this. I know that coming up here before too long, we'll be able to reschedule another hour in a few weeks, and because there's so much more that I want to be able to talk with David about. And hopefully I can, at that point, pick up and have Austin call back in as well, because it's just an amazing thing to have both of these gentlemen on the phone lines together, because they bounce off of each other in just an amazing kind of way. We're already at 8:30. We've been running an hour and a half. And here again, my apology that the one side of everything has kind of gone downhill. I don't know what happened, that we lost the phone lines. But again, I'll get in touch with David here and try to reschedule. And the same thing with Austin, because I would very seriously like to talk to both of them a bit more. But I'm going to go ahead and talk just for a minute. When we went to the Vapors Carnival, and David Goerlitz was up on the stage, and he was talking with the advocacy panel, and I'll tell you something, the way that he was talking with everyone that was in the crowd, there wasn't anybody that was shuffling around. Every single person was listening to what he was telling them, and he was loud about it, not like yelling loud, but he didn't mince words when he got into doing everything about that. But he was there because he has turned around and partnered with a company called Pinnacle CBD. And that's one of the next things when I get back in touch with him again that I really want to talk to him about is the Pinnacle CBD side. So we're going to have to reschedule an hour or an hour and a half for that. Hopefully the next time the phone lines won't go dead. But he has his own signature line with Pinnacle CBD. Is his spokesperson for Pinnacle. And they have some absolutely amazing material. I'll tell you what. So when we get him back on the phone here in a week or 2 weeks or something, when we can, and all of the hardware and all of our necessities is going to work correctly, I really want to talk to him about his CBD Pinnacle line. But this evening, again, it was David Goerlitz, former Winston man, and he has his own podcast, and I put up on the screen for the Facebook side, but for people that don't have Facebook, if you're listening to a replay, go to davidgmodelcitizen.com. You can look it up on Google. davidgmodelcitizen.com. There's David and Kevin Crowley, and they get in depth into some of the things that are really going on and more of the information than I could present in an hour. And they go at it really, really seriously hardcore. And I listened to his episode earlier today, and it's just fantastic. Fantastic material. But for right now, anyhow, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Since we've got the technical side, and unfortunately it just kind of fell apart on that, and we're going to have to save the absolute question that I wanted to ask him when I get back in touch with him and get him on the phone again. I'm going to ask him about the cloud comp because I'm curious to see what side is he going to fall on. So far, we're tied, Snoop Dogg and Steve Tyler 2-2. But that'll be interesting to see his take on that. But for now, folks, again, I look forward to getting David back on the phone again with Austin Hopper. because I do want to talk to both of these guys. Next week is kind of an intro as we go along. For next week, I've got an absolute doll coming online. I met her online. I was able to meet and catch up with her on the Facebook side, and then I caught up with her at the expo. And it's Miss Tibbetts coming out, and she's working. She's working for a store out on the East Coast, and I want to get her take on it because she's been to a lot of the expos, and she has a very unique insight. And I will tell people the same thing that I told her is this is one lady that needs to come with her own warning label. But anyhow, next week we'll have her live on the show. And then hopefully we can, like I said, we can get back in touch with David because I would very much like to continue what we had going on. But for this evening, I'm glad for everybody that stuck around, even though we had technical difficulty. And I look forward to catching up with everybody again next week. Again, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Smoke Free Radio Network. Until next week, folks.